Sometimes the question arises whether we need South Africa for an introduction to Africa. We don't, because India already has a very extensive historic connect with Africa. But I think there is one respect in which India needs South Africa. And when I was in South Africa, I kept hearing this term that South Africa can act as a gateway to Indian companies, and indeed it is. In fact, if you look at about 250 odd Indian companies which have set up offices in Johannesburg, because of the excellent infrastructure, excellent facilities that South Africa provides, there are many Indian companies which have set up regional offices in South Africa, and from there they service the entire African continent. Because of certain difficulties in terms of logistics, in terms of living in many other parts of Africa. So I think that is something that can be leveraged for further cementing this relationship between India and South Africa. And lastly, the tourism. I think if there is one destination, not only in Africa, but I think if you look at the entire world, which offers everything into one, offers wildlife and casino and so many different things, so many activities, beautiful city like Cape Town. I think something that any Indian tourist would love to get. So if you get about 120,000 people, tourists from India going to South Africa, I think this is just scratching the surface, considering that millions of Indians are traveling out of the country. They're looking for more exotic new destinations, and there is no reason why South Africa cannot attract not 250,000, not 500,000, but 1 million tourists. And I think that is an area, again, where India and South Africa can work together for developing tourist infrastructure. I know Vijay Mallya, of course, is a much maligned name in India now, but he used to operate a wildlife resort. And I used to see hordes of Indian tourists over there. Indian tourist, when he goes, even if he's an exotic location, he wants to have Indian food. He wants to have Indian paratha. And in this tourist resort, Mhaule, they would offer Indian breakfast, Indian lunch, and Bollywood disco dancing. So I think there is a lot of traction possible for Indian companies to invest in the hospitality sector in India with an eye on the potential Indian tourists. So I think I'll end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambassador Gupta. Now I would request Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia.
Thank you, Director General. Thank you, Chairman, for inviting me. Deputy Minister, a very warm welcome to you. And distinguished panelists and ladies and gentlemen. Because the time is short, I would like to be very precise in expressing my views. And I'm very happy that my distinguished successor in Pretoria has already covered quite a lot of ground, so I probably can do something else as well. I would like to begin by saying that I served 3 years in South Africa, 2006 to 2009. And so it's only proper that I present a view from the trenches that is based on the experience there, not reminiscences, not autobiography, but to say that whether you are a high official, such as the Deputy Minister, who runs the entire foreign policy machine of the country, or a foreign ambassador, Pretoria gives you the global outlook. Very few people realize that the same kind of experience a diplomat gets in Washington, Moscow, Paris, as you get in Pretoria. And South Africa is the only African country, I think, where you get this experience. When you're sitting in South Africa, you are truly looking at the whole globe and you are trying to follow and understand what is going on all around the world. And this is particularly significant because when we study South Africa's global role, this is a particularly significant month as South Africa once again begins to serve as the non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. Its role in NAM has been important. It's a very major G20 countries. It's a leader in African Union and SADC. And of course, it is part of BRICS and IPSA. And on top of that, it is also a leading member of the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So really, in terms of global, international, regional view, if we just look at South Africa alone from that angle, I think there would be hardly any time left for the bilateral partnership with India, but we would certainly touch that as well. I think the backdrop of the Deputy Minister's visit to India is important. It seems to me that it was good that Raisina dialogue drew her in, but I think it is possible that her president also told her to go and prepare for his visit and sample and understand and listen as to what India, not just the official India, but the non-official India is thinking and reflecting on this relationship. And I presume, therefore, it would help her and her team to prepare for that great visit that would happen. Some uncharitable person looking at this whole story of the Republic Day, chief guest said that President Ramaphosa is going to be an accidental chief guest. I want to correct this impression. I think President Ramaphosa would come as our most honored and most respected guest, and he's guaranteed to have a red carpet in India, no matter how long or short his visit would be. Now, in this broad context, therefore, what I can do is, without wasting time on the global outlook, I think that is something that I would leave it to the others. I would very quickly run through my checklist of a few key pointers on where this relationship is and how it can head faster in the coming years. Firstly, on the bilateral side, I have two suggestions, Madam Deputy Minister. One is that the focus has to be on the economic aspects. Last April, I was in Johannesburg. I attended the very promising business summit of India and South Africa. And at that time, the two governments spoke about a joint action plan. I hope progress is taking place on that, and if we could be taken into confidence at some stage, that would be really very helpful. Secondly, on the bilateral aspect, I think it is very important for both our countries to focus attention on blue economy. I think Operation Fakiza of South Africa and India's doctrine of Sagar, and oceanic development of sustainable blue economy are becoming very important and also mutually complementary, and therefore more work needs to be done there. Then we can very quickly move to the regional organizations, and we have to say that on BRICS, I think India and South Africa are cooperating admirably, but there is a problem. There is a problem that my colleague very rightly pointed out, the problem of establishing and ensuring balance within this regional grouping. And the question, therefore, is as to how that balance can come in. And I think there is a very strong feeling, at least in the non-official India, that that can only come when IPSA is reactivated. I don't subscribe to the view that IPSA has been abandoned. I think all that has happened is that IPSA has been kept at the level of the 3 foreign ministers in the last 4 or 5 years. So my question is, when deputy ministers and ministers will be able to persuade their political leaders to go in for the long-awaited next IPSA summit. I think that is the pointer that I would like to share with her. I would also like then to move on quickly to comment on the stewardship of South Africa with regard to Indian Ocean Rim Association, or IORA. I think in line with the wonderful work that was done by previous chairs, Indonesia, Australia, and India, South Africa has secured and consolidated the gains. There is an institutional development of this body. There are new guidelines for engagement with the observers. There are new mechanisms that have been created. And I just heard at Raisina Dialogue, Australian Foreign Minister saying that IORA is passing through its best phase today. It's the view I share, and I think we would very much like to hear as to how the future of this organization holds. I could also perhaps make one important point, and this is, Madam Deputy Minister, I want to stress that we welcome South Africa's heightened interest in Asia, but we hope that South Africa will follow a judiciously calibrated and balanced policy, and it will keep in view the essential diversity and multipolarity of the Asian continent. I have two suggestions finally. One is the connection of think tanks between India and South Africa leaves much to be desired. There are 4 or 5 think tanks in South Africa and 4 or 5 of them here in India which are keen to work on joint research, to work and produce advice and recommendations and policy statements for the policy makers, but they are unable to do so because there is not sufficient support from the two governments. I think this is something that needs to be looked at, and I would say that in this case, the mechanism should be inclusive and it should receive sustained support from the two governments. On a purely personal perspective, I feel that the Indian High Commission in Pretoria and the South African High Commission in Delhi can do more for engaging with diplomats, former diplomats and experts who have had experience of the working in the other country. I think this is an asset which is waiting to be tapped. And finally, this is what my friend Suhas always has said, and I have remembered to put this in my checklist, and I would like to say that to sensitize our young generation, sitting here, I'm very happy and I'm grateful to my dear colleague Bhaskar, who is the dean of a part of this group. I think for sensitizing our young generations about the heritage bequeathed to us by our iconic leaders, Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi, I think there is a very strong need to institute a series of public lectures in each country to be delivered by the experts of the other country, because this will be our investment in this generation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ambassador Bhatia. Now I would like to invite Dr. Pelane Matambu, Executive Director, Institute for Global Dialogue in South Africa. He's one of the prominent voices in South Africa, and the 2 books that he has done would tell you about his interests. One is China and India's Development Cooperation in Africa, The Rise of Southern Power. And second is equally interesting, from MDGs to SDGs, the rise of international development. So both are very timely, very appropriate publications. Pelane, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Prof. Chaturvedi. It's a real honor, I think, to address colleagues in this gathering. I think I'll keep my, as you said, time limitations. I'll keep my contribution to 5 minutes. And in that, I just want to frame it around the idea of India, South Africa in the New World Order, placing development at the center of global partnerships. The reason I say placing development at the center of global partnerships is that I think the leadership of these respective countries and the legitimacy of their leadership will, at least the sustainability of their leadership, will largely hang on their ability to demonstrate how they themselves have continued to improve the citizens in their own countries, but also in terms of how, through global partnerships, they are working with other countries to ensure that their global partnerships are built towards international development. So I think that is going to be a core part, especially because in this uncertain era of global politics, there's a number of distractions where we are kind of being taken back to realpolitik and the idea that power is only about might is right. And I think it's important that countries such as South Africa and India are actually at the core of ensuring that they keep development at the core of international engagement. They are the countries that, even through the Doha development round, were trying to ensure that issues of development remain central. And I think it's important that in their continued leadership in their respective regions and also globally, that they keep development at the core. Because our respective populations, and I think, and other countries will judge us by our ability to ensure that our international relations have very tangible benefits to